Hello and welcome back to the Conscious Man 7 podcast. I am your host Todd Cave and this is podcast 18. On this episode, I was a guest on the Uncanny Mystic Minds podcast and we talked about the Anunnaki effect and how it has shaped our world today. We also talked about the Sumerian civilization and how our modern day civilization is actually built on top of the Sumerian civilization, and why it is important to understand their history, the gods that they worshipped, and the things that they did. Because when you understand the past, it is much easier to understand the present, because the past and the present may not be the same, but they sure rhyme. If you are new to this podcast, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and to share, because that helps us to be recommended in the algorithms. If you would like to support this podcast, please check out our merch store on Amazon with the brand Todd and Me. We've got some cool t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, and sweaters. Link will be in the description of this podcast. And if you're now starting a spiritual journey, you would like to start a spiritual journey, or you're currently on a spiritual journey and you would like some help removing some fears and traumas, please hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246 and it will help you to get some magic mushrooms. Enjoy the show and stay tuned because we have some more great content coming soon.
When truth is blurred by lies and misinformation, perception becomes reality. What will you perceive your reality to be?
Liberate your fears and walk with me.
Sit down and meditate. Connect with your soul.
Be a monster and then learn how to control it.
You got to be willing to do the work.
So it really goes really deep in terms of words and etymology and what they mean. So this is why it is really hard to really crack the matrix, because there's so many levels and layers to it,
Hey, welcome back, guys, to another Uncanny Mystic Minds. So for today, my special guest is Todd Cave. How's it going, Todd? How you doing, bro?
I am very well, and just looking at the world just go crazy and crazier, and just sitting back in the background from a distance and just saying, "Wow, okay, this is what people want,"
Yeah, scoping out the scene, and you're noticing the poop on the wall or whatever's on the wall. Something got splattered on the wall, and I guess we're all looking at it, and we can smell it sometimes too. But yeah. But thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Yeah, so we met through social media, on IG and stuff, and I like a lot of the stuff that you put out. I'm kind of interested in that stuff, like especially like your like the fitness stuff. I'm kind of all about that. It's pretty cool. I like how you kind of like the way you approach like fitness and like challenges and and things like that, and like you're also like pretty technical, you know what I mean? And then so I really like that, and but I got hip to you from Jahan. I had Jahan on here. He's a really cool dude, very informative dude, from Boundless Authenticity podcast, and yeah, you guys, I think you guys crushed it pretty good on the episodes you were on there, and I'm really intrigued by this Anunnaki stuff, because when I heard you talking about it, I really like the details and I like the avenues of which those conversations were headed. You know what I mean? They're pretty, I know a little bit about Anunnaki, like I'm sure some people do, but I really liked your take, and it really felt like it had a lot of substance, like in the foundation of your speaking, you know what I mean? So that really resonated with me, you know what I mean? And your vibe too. So yeah, man. So how did you get into the Anunnaki stuff? I guess to start with.
Well, that's a good question. I guess if I were to take it all the way back, it happened when I was about 10 years old, because my father at the time, he was going through, as we men go through phases in our life, and he was on a quest to search for truth. And what happened is that he started to go to like, I don't know if it's the right word to say, like he would go to like Islamic schools to just search, because it was just part of the journey to find out what's going on, and delving into religions. And basically, he kind of sowed a seed of doubt in my head from a very young age, that things are not really what they tell us, right? So
Oh,
that started, I guess, my me being inquisitive about things, and from him going and reading stuff and coming back and speaking to us, I end up challenging my Sunday school teachers and stuff. So that
mm,
basically sowed a seed of like to ask questions, not to necessarily believe the narrative and what they tell us. And basically, he gave me a book called The Lost Book of Enki, and
mm.
the Memoirs of an Extraterrestrial God. And I got
Is
that book.
I'm
Sorry?
sorry, is that the same book or is that two different books? I'm sorry.
Right. So that book. So fast forward. Well, I guess I missed out a part. So fast forward many years afterwards, when I was in my 20s, he gave me a book called The Lost Book of Enki, the Memoirs of an Extraterrestrial God.
Okay,
And
okay.
right, so I used to read it, but not really like properly read it. It took me years to finish read it. I would just read piece here, piece there, piece there. But what happened to me is that about 7 years ago, yeah, about 7 years ago, I found a YouTube channel called The Global Witness. He was actually an anon before. And what happened is that he would be saying all kinds of stuff, and basically he'd be telling you the books to read, and he'd be telling you the sources to go and find this information.
Okay.
So what happened is that I picked back up the book, The Lost Book of Enki, and started from the beginning because I was about halfway. But because it took me so long to get to half, I kind of forgotten everything. So
Uh-huh.
he had said that this is one of the books to read. So what happened is that I picked up the book and started to read it now from like from the beginning, and wow, I was just blown away because like the writer of the book, Zachariah Sitchin, a lot of people like to talk bad about him, but I would say that that book that he wrote was a very good book because I've also read his other book called The 12th Planet, and the Lost Book of Enki shows you where the stories in the Bible come from, because the Lost Book of Enki was written in cuneiform, and that opens up then now an avenue for you to start looking at the Sumerian tablets. And
Mhm.
when you start to read the Sumerian tablets, you realize that all the tales in pretty much all religious books stem from the Sumerian tablets. So these tablets are about 5,500 years old, and they talk about a time that is up to 450,000 years ago. And in these tablets, it talks about a group of, they refer to themselves as deities called the Anunnaki. And the word Anunnaki just means those from heaven to earth came. So basically, as I've delved into this information, my understanding is that they sort of are like humanoid in appearance, maybe just much bigger, but they have female and male genitalia. They put on their
Mm,
pants one leg at a time. So I would say that they're sort of either interdimensional extraterrestrial beings or just advanced humans from another galaxy, right? But
okay.
they appear to be just like us. They walk on their hind legs, they eat food, they drink beer, all these kind of things. So in these Sumerian tablets and in this group called the Anunnaki, there are three main gods. One is Anu, who's represented by Uranus in the
Mhm.
planet. You have Enki, who's represented by Neptune, and then you have Enlil, who I think from memory is Jupiter. And
Okay.
these three main gods are basically the protagonists in the entire story, right? Everything more or less comes from them and goes outwards. So
Mm,
Enki, his name En means Lord, and Ki means of earth. And he
mm,
has Enlil is En, Lord, and Lil is sky. So he's Lord of the Sky, Lord of Command. And
And you
so
were saying
basically,
that's Jupiter, right? You were saying that's more associated with Jupiter, right?
yeah, it looks like it's
Yeah,
more associated with Jupiter because
that makes sense. Okay, that makes sense because then I was thinking like it's like Zeus, sky god, and then so that's with Jupiter. And
I'm
then I
gonna get
knew
into that.
about and I remember hearing about Uranus as Anu, right? Because it's like the older one, like more predecessor, right? But I didn't know about Enki. And then you were saying Neptune, right? More so with that. That's so cool. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because a little while ago, some weeks or short months ago, I had done a little bit of stuff with classical planets, just kind of covering a little bit about that and like the feeling of those planets. And I never got into the like the other ones of Uranus and Pluto, Neptune, like that, like the other I guess non-classical ones, you know what I mean? So it's very nice and interesting to hear about this because it's very relevant, for sure. I guess if I could ask really quick, this is just like in my head. I remember hearing it on like End of Days Radio, a very old episode with Robert Stanley, and he has his stories with, I guess, like his relationship or what he experienced with like Lucifer, who he believed to be Lucifer, right? And then he was talking about how Enki was Lucifer or something like that. Do you kind of like also see that, or do you like disagree with that? Like, what is your take on that?
In the beginning, I used to actually think that Lucifer was Enki and Satan was Enlil. Now, the thing is now is that when I did more digging, the word Lucifer actually comes from the ancient Greek word phosphorus, which means the morning star or the star of the morning. And that star at the time, according to the Sumerian tablets, was Venus, because we know that Venus did a flyby. Because up to this day, Venus is still the brightest star in the sky. So Venus appeared to have been much closer to Earth, and when it did that flyby, so the Sumerian tablets infer that it was actually a sun at the time, right? So what happened is that that word phosphorus in ancient Greek, instead of it being transliterated into um, Latin, it was actually translated. So transliterated means like the word would be phosphorus in Greek and be phosphorus in Latin. But instead, what happened is that it went from phosphorus to Lucifer, because Lucifer in Latin means the star of the morning.
Oh,
Right. So when you read in the Bible, and I can't remember what chapter it is, but it talks about the son of the morning, and that is actually inferring that it's Venus, right? So now I have changed my thinking to think that Lucifer is actually Enki, because Lucifer is just a representation of Venus. When you go back looking at the information, and the word Satan actually just means adversary.
yeah.
So what it is now is that in the Anunnaki pantheon, as I was saying, that there are the three main gods, then there are other gods in this pantheon, and they have a ranking in terms of number. So they use a base six numbering system, and Anu is 60, and Lil is 50. So he's just under Anu, and that's because Enlil was born from Anu's half sister. So Anu's half sister is Enlil's mum. But what it is now is that Enki, he was actually the firstborn, but he was born of a consort, right? So according to Anunnaki rules, the heir to the throne cannot come from a consort, even though he was firstborn. It has to come from the half sister of the king, right? Which was Anu. So
Okay.
this is actually what caused a lot of the friction in the Anunnaki pantheon, and also is being played out here on Earth, which I'll explain in a bit. So Enki, he's base 40, so he's under um, Enlil. And Enki had always felt that he should be the one that should be the heir of the throne instead of Enlil because he was the firstborn. But you can't go against the rules. So what it is now is that you have these two brothers and their offspring, because according to the Sumerian tablets, Enki and Enlil had children, and those children were mixed. They mixed with the hominin species that Enki created, because in the document, the Atrahasis, which is comes out of the Epic of Gilgamesh, it talks about the Babylonian creation story. I was actually rereading that today for this podcast, and when the gods first came here, there was a group. So in the Anunnaki, you can think of them as like the politicians, the aristocrats, the royal family, prime ministers, presidents, etc. Those are the ruling class, and under them, which would be the working class, us, are called the Ajiji. And the Ajiji toiled. Some sources say 200,000 years. The Atrahasis says 3,600, but I tend to more lean towards 200,000, because we know that they have mines in South Africa that are go back up to 200,000 years ago. And that area in South Africa was referred to as the Abzu, which is mean the land below. And what happened is that the Ijiji, which were just like humans as well, as I understand it, they were just bigger again, but they were the working class, so they're just like us. And when they came to Earth, the mission was to mine gold because their planet Nibiru was disintegrating. We don't know why, but it was disintegrating, and the idea was to come to Earth, mine gold to send back to Nibiru so that they could pulverize it and shoot it in the atmosphere to help heal the atmosphere. So what happened is that the Ijiji got fed up of working because they dug the canals for the River Tigris, the Euphrates, even for the for some other rivers as well. They were mining in the gold mines, and it's very hard, backbreaking work. So there was a character called Allah, which is actually connected to Allah for the Muslims. But he is the one that instigated a mutiny against the Anunnaki because the work was so hard and they were going to go to war with the Anunnaki. So what happened is that Enki had a bright idea, and because there was an existing hominin species on Earth already, just quite primitive, they mixed their DNA with that DNA. So that species was Homo sapiens sapien, and what they did is that they mixed they actually said they mixed their essence. According to Yatrahasis, they did a incantation, a magical incantation. They sacrificed one of their Ajiji gods called Ilawela, and in that incantation, they transferred his spirit, because he was actually quite smart as well.
What was the
Into
name of that? I'm sorry. What was the name of that spirit that they sacrificed? Of Abuela?
Ilawela.
Ilawela.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Wow, it's
And
interesting. For some reason, because I wasn't sure if I heard that right, because it's not exactly close, or it's not exactly, but in Spanish it sounds very similar to grandmother. So that's why I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like
abuela.
yeah, like they would use someone like that's old, like an old protege or an old prototype. You know what I mean? Like maybe that has, I don't know. That was just kind of a little thought I had, but yeah. Sorry to take you off there, but yeah.
No, that's fine. So what it is now is that they took one of their own, who was in the GG, sacrificed him because he had good intelligence level, and because they just wanted a being that could understand commands and carry out work. So they sacrificed Ilawela, did a magical incantation, transferred his spirit to the body, because they physically made a body, right, out of clay. So this is where the story in the Bible that God made man out of clay. It came from these Sumerian tablets. And when they transferred the spirit into the Frankenstein that they created, it became sentient, right? So basically, that being that they created, because they had 14 birth mothers, 7 to create 7 males and 7 to create 7 females, so that they could eventually procreate and make more people, because they wanted a workforce to carry out the hard work, right? So what happened is when they ended up creating us, right? They it appears that they idolize themselves in the cosmos, in the stars, to make them look like gods. So like I said to you that some of the Anunnaki derive like immort personifies themselves into these planets, because these planets are pretty old, pretty like almost like forever, you could say. And it appears that this is how they ended up creating this god status. Like, so what's happened is that when they created the humans to work, they basically had sex with the offspring of the creatures that they created, us, right? But we were actually at a higher level of consciousness as well, than what we are now. Because what happened is that when the first Adam, or Adama, or in some translations the Adapa, was created, he would live for very, very many years. Because when you look at the Sumerian kings list, we had 8 immortal kings that reigned for a total of 241,200 years. Some reigning for 36,000 years, 28,800, 16,000, 600 years. Very long time, right? So
Yeah.
this is us when we were in our glory, right? And what happened is that we've had many cataclysms, but this story of the flood that's in the Bible came from the actual Sumerian tablets. And every indigenous tribe on Earth, the um, the Mali, the Dogons in Mali, the Aborigines in Australia, the Hopi and the Navajo in America, they all talk about a group of beings that basically saved them from the cataclysm. So what happened is that when the cataclysm was spotted was going to happen, then they conspired to kill man out. And because what had happened is that Enlil, who's really Jehovah Yahweh, he's the God of the Jews, he was fed up with all the noise that we were making, because it appears like if Enki had kind of like tuned our DNA to his slightly, so that he could hear everything, so he could hear all the conversations, he could hear when we were having sex, he could hear us when we were arguing, enjoying ourselves, and it just would drive him mad.
Wow,
And
it's interesting.
yeah, so he basically ordered a culling of us, right? Because he was
Yeah.
just fed up. So when you look at the Atrahasis, um, what's happening on Earth now is very symbolic, because they had a flood, and what happened is that Enki, who is the father of Ziasudra, who is also called Atrahasis, which called learned man, or very intelligent, I think from memory. So what happened is that he actually gave Ziasudra the heads up that a great flood was coming. And this is where the story of Noah in the Bible comes from. Is actually from this character called Ziasudra.
Mm.
So what happened is that Enki gave him the heads up and told him the dimensions to build. Basically, it looks like a submarine, right? To be able to withstand the floods, But it was
Yeah.
basically a big boat, which is attributed to like the Ark, that
Yeah.
is on, is it Mount Anatolia? I think from memory. I can't remember the name of the mountain is on now, but Mount Ararat. And basically, after some of man was saved, because Ziasudra, Noah, he took all a male and female of all the animals and his family, and they went in this ark. So this is actually how man was reseeded again. But this time, they did not mix their essence with with us. They stopped procreating with us because this is where the story of the giants and everything came from in the Bible, because they were almost like immortal because they had the pure Anunnaki DNA. They were hybrids, but they were much purer. So in
Hmm.
reality, so what they also did is after they reseeded the earth, they created these systems of governance for man. They created money, they created religion, they created government, and all these three. I call them the three main religions of the world, which is organized religion, money, and government, to basically control us, right?
Hmm.
Because after the flood and everything and people were receded, they tried to kill us out about like almost like 7 times with famines, droughts, selling pestilence, making us sick, you know, because they just had to cull us, you know. And this is actually very, very symbolic of what's going on in the world today, where they've been trying to take us out with the jabs. They're trying to cut the supply chains. In actual fact, when you read the actual cases, it's quite sad because it got so bad that m- mothers and fathers were eating their children. You know, it was that
Wow.
bad. Yeah. And of course, the ones that were favored in that the Anunnaki favored, they told them to store up grain for 7 years, right? And basically, all the tribulations and the pestilence lasted for 7 years, because on the 6th year, from memory, that's when they start eating their children. And then on the 7th year, like some begged to just stop the savagery, and Enlil agreed and allowed us to come back to life, you know. But they created
Wow.
a lot of like um you know governments, kings, monarchies, royal families, aristocrats, all those came out of the bloodline. So when they ended up mixing their DNA with man, what happened is that they had favorites that they had liked. So this allowed them to withdraw more and more from the front. So then now their bloodlines, the kings and the priests and the priestesses and stuff like, they ended up ru- ruling on their behalf, right? And you see this from the Egyptian culture to the Greek culture, and it's actually playing out in modern day now. So what it is now is that what we have today, because remember I said to you that you have the Enki and Enlil, that they were always against one another.
Yeah, they always had their brotherly, like a brotherly beef, like kind of like a, what do they call that? Just like a family, like
Family feud.
just kind of, yeah, like kind of like family beef. It's like with it, but it's like political in a sense, but it's like family related and
It
like
is.
that.
It is. It is. It's mad because you see what we have now is that you have the children of Enki fighting against the children of Enlil. So Marduk, who is the chief god in Babylon, also known as Baal, Bel Marduk, Beelzebub, Moloch. He
Okay.
goes by many different
I
names.
didn't know it
He's
was all the same alias. I didn't know that Baal and Marduk were the same
yes,
alias or
yes,
whatever. Okay.
yeah,
Oh,
because they changed their names quite a lot, and I think it's purposely done to confuse us. So you have the Enki faction against the Enlil faction.
yeah.
Excuse me. And what? Oh, sorry. Oh,
Yeah, and like I guess because you were saying like Marduk, that was Babylon, right?
yes,
And then how you were saying like one of the threes of like religion, government, and money, like that's where Babylonian money magic came from, in
I
a
was
sense,
you took
right?
the words out of my mouth. I was just gonna say
Okay.
that
Okay.
Marduk. It
Yeah.
appears that Marduk is the one that, I don't want to say invented money, but it came out of Babylon, and he was the chief
Yeah.
god in Babylon,
Yeah.
right?
So he was a huge part of that
Influence,
scene.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, he was a
Oh my
huge
God. Right.
protagonist in that happening.
Because if you just think about it, like okay, like in if you're if you're engulfed in the 3D, you will be like, well, we need money for this and this and that. But if you just kind of like maybe like meditate or like just like take your mind, like kind of get out of yourself for a little bit and you like think about just the money concept, it's pretty outrageous a little bit. You know what I mean? to be able to influence everyone like that, that is definitely a form of magic that worked, that happened to work. You know what I mean? Because
Yes, definitely. It looked like
yeah,
the first religion came out of Babylon, and it came out under him, because
okay,
the Talmud was inspired or created in Babylon when the Jews were in slavery. And the
wow.
Talmudic Jews are the ones that I would say worship Marduk. Marduk is actually mentioned by name in the Torah in Hebrew. His name is Bel Marduk in actual Hebrew. But because most people don't read Hebrew or read the Torah, we wouldn't know. But he's actually mentioned there. And I have actually seen some information that very strongly suggests that they created the concept of God, because they actually said we created God, right? And these are the
Oh,
Talmudic Jews that actually say that they will not openly admit it, but I've seen information that very strongly suggests that. Yeah,
wow.
yeah. So
Sheesh.
the first religion seemed to have came out of Babylon. The Babylonian magic, money, came out of Babylon. And Marduk, he actually went to war with the Anunnaki, because what they used to do is that they used to pass around the kingship amongst themselves, and they would read the stars to see when the next zodiac, the house, because they created the houses of zodiac as well, right? Because remember I
Oh,
said that is a base 6 system, so this is why you
yeah.
have 12 zodiacs, because 2 times 6 is 12, right? Or
Oh,
6 and 6 is 12,
how did you?
right?
I've never heard of this base system. Like, and then how you said, like Anu was like 60, which I guess, like, is that because the bottom of the base, which is like the very foundational part, right? Like,
I,
like, where did you hear about this system? And then, like, how does that even work? Like, yeah, how does that work?
it's nuts, because they have a completely different numbering system. This is where the 369 seems to have come out of, because what they have done is that the 369 are the numbers of God, right? We know through the Emerald Tablets of Thoth that 9 is the Father. And when you look at sacred geometry and all of the things that are celestial, things that we can't explain, they link back to 3, 6, and 9. So 3 being the earth, 6 being man, the son of man, and 9 being God. So this is why, because we're made of clay, we have we share the same um, creations. What was it called now? The templates for creation inside of us. This comes out of our mother, which is the earth. We are the son of man because we are spirit as well. But because we are not the father, but we're in the father, so the 3 and the 6 connects to the 9. So this is
Yeah.
how the system works, right?
Oh,
Yeah. So they use a base system of 6, and then obviously we'll have the derivatives in there. So they
wow.
try to take a celestial architecture and sort of like base their systems of government and governance around it, but invert it at the same time, right? So they take
Mhm.
something that's good and flip it, right? In order to be able to get control of us, right?
Wow. Yeah. Wow. That's a trip, dude. Yeah. I, I, I'm into numbers too, and I guess just because of my birthday, which is on 10/6, I always had this joke, or I don't know. I mean, kind of like an inside joke, or just like a correlation that I had. And so, with the number 6, I had always associated that with like me, in a sense of like like my body or myself, you know what I mean? Because my joke was that 10/6, like how in the Mad Hatter he has 10/6. That's my birthday, and so I always thought about that, and I was like, oh, like God is over me. And then I would always say that, well, God, like, if, like, for me, I would say God was the 10, because I would say that that's like the highest one, because I would say the highest one is actually a 9. Like, imagine if we were rating like hot chicks, you know what I mean? Like, oh, she's a 10 or she's a this, right? I would say that, well, in actuality, like the hottest a girl can get is like 9.9. because then the 10 would have to go to God. Like there is no 10. Like that's how I would say it. And then so I would say that 9 is the highest number. Like and like in numerology, like in terms of the basics, like 9 is the highest one. You know what I mean? So there's I see that as well too. That's pretty cool. Yeah. And then
Yes.
yeah.
So
That makes
basically,
sense. Oh, yeah, go,
right.
please.
So
Yeah.
I was talking about 9. So this comes out of the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, and it talks about the numbers of ascension, and they say that 5 is which is goes into the fifth dimension, right? Fifth is the master lord of all magic, key to the word, the resound that resounds among man. 6 is the lord of light, hidden pathway, part of the souls of the children of men, right? So in actual fact, 6 is actually quite a high number as well, because the thing is that a lot of people don't really understand that the number of man is actually 666, because we have
Yeah.
6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 6 six
Yeah.
electrons.
Yeah.
So then you
Even the
have the
sun. Even with the sun, you know, with the planet of the sun, you know, one of the numbers that it gets is 666. And then I guess I think about that one like the sun is very tied to like our ego, right? Our ego is our identification of who we think of who we feel we are, right? And then so that makes sense too, like the whole that 6 is tied to that, like that's like your persona of your identification, and a lot of that is tied to the body, right? So that's pretty
uh,
cool.
absolutely. So then you have 7 is the lord of the vastness, master of space, and key to the times. 8 is he who orders the progress, weights, and balances the journey of men. And then 9, the Father vast, he of countenance, forming and changing from out of the formless. So there are many different sources that you have to really read in order to understand these things, because they've split up a lot of information in many different parts and in many different books, you know.
Yeah.
And so as I was saying, like they have the two factions fighting against one of the Enki side and the Enlil side. And Enki, excuse me, I wouldn't say he was all bad, but he more was very sympathetic to us because he's the creator of this body that we have. And he's represented as the serpent in the Garden of Eden, but
Mm.
in the Genesis story, sorry, and in the Garden
Yeah.
of Eden.
Yeah.
And the serpent really is a very ancient symbol of wisdom, right? And he was represented as that in the Old Testament, but in actual fact, he is the one that told Eve that basically, well, y'all are being enslaved by Enlil, because when you read these tablets, it is mad because it was almost like an open laboratory where they would have times to go and have sex and then not times to go and work, and then they'd be just trying to um you know just do experiments on us, you know. So
Yeah.
we were just like cattle to them.
That's
And
funny that you just said that, because I was gonna ask you the question is like I had kind of heard something that one of them was a little bit more of like a scientist, like so that
yes,
I'm assuming, and then
that was
the other,
Enki.
oh yeah, okay, and then the other one, was he like more of like a general type, kind of like as
Yes,
opposed to
and
as
Lil.
opposed to scientist,
Yes,
right? Okay.
yes. I would say that Enki was the chief master geneticist. He's the one that pioneered things like gene splitting, clonation. Uh, You know, he used to have things called the MEs or the MEs, which would be the keys to civilization. We don't know exactly what that means, but it could be the blueprints to creating a civilization, like the um, things that you would need for like wheat and DNA for animals, etc., etc. You know what I mean? We don't know exactly what the means were, but it just say that those are the keys for creating a civilization. You know?
Right. He had like a lot of different like technology and stuff like that.
Yes,
Right?
he was a geneticist, technological person. But he's the one that created the houses of the zodiac. He's the one that was the astrologer. he's the one that basically would be telling them when Nibiru is going to come back close to Earth, because the Nibiru
Oh,
has an elliptical, an, a long elliptical revolution around the sun, right? So that's some people say that this is what is called the 12th planet. Whenever it comes in to our atmosphere, it causes instability, right? So it's one of those that when you read it, you have to think, well, there's a lot of stuff that we just are blatantly not told about, and we're kept in the dark about, and this is why we're so dumbed down because the schools teach us the lies, they tell us the truth in the movies, and then they use propaganda in the media to make us stupid and fearful, you know. So there's why a lot of things that I would say a lot of people scoff at it because they think it's just fanciful, they think it's just tales. But the more and more I read these things, the more I'm convinced that it makes a lot more sense than the narrative that they tell us, you know. And
yeah,
we have, like you said, these it's like a family, right, fighting amongst one another because what it is that everyone's always vying for domination, right? And we see this with in the Greek pantheon. You see it even playing out here because right now what we have on Earth is all right. Let me step back a bit. The planet is run by an international criminal cartel syndicate, right? And in that syndicate, we have two factions, and each faction is vying for supremacy. I I see the parable as like the difference between Brave New World or 1984. So what I would say is that the Enki
interesting.
faction seems to be the one that are more like the Brave New World, which is a bit of a softy type control, using a lot of mind bending and mental gymnastics to usher in deception. And then the other side is just force. You know, I mean, you step out of line, you will be crushed, right?
Yeah, it's more brutish. It's more brutal.
More brutish, yes,
I guess
brutal.
that makes sense too. If that's the side that the general, the quote unquote general, was on, he would be more brutish like that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes, and I'm
yeah,
more inclined to think that Enlil is more that 1984 style, and then Enki's faction is more in the Brave New World type. But then you have a cog in the wheel, which is Marduk, who is just a pure psychopath, and he's also represented by the owl. So if you look on the dollar bill, you will see an owl on the back.
I actually just saw this recently because I never really saw the owl thing until the last a week or two ago. So that's pretty good timing.
Yeah, that's the representation of Marduk, because he basically went to war with the Anunnaki, and what happened is that they dropped nuclear weapons to try to kill him. Now, these nuclear weapons have been used many times on the planet, but one instance is in where you have the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. That was one place where they dropped nuclear bombs, and that nuclear wind just blew, and it went into Samaria and killed them all. Right. So this is where the story of Lot and where they turned into a pillar of salt came from. They dropped nukes on them, and we know this because in that area, it's still radioactive, and when you heat sand, I think is 3700 degrees or something like that, it turns to glass. And when you pull away the soil in that area, it's all glass. So what happened is that when the nuclear wind blew, it wiped out all of Samaria. And Samaria was like their prized civilization. And because Marduk escaped, and no, after Marduk escaped and they found out, they tried to kill him again, but he was unsuccess. They were unsuccessful. So basically, what he said as well, because he thought that it was his time to reign, because when he looked at the zodiac, he thought it was his sign, but he was too early, right? And they said, no, you it's not your time. You have to just wait. But he wanted to take it by force. So what happened is, because there was so much destruction, he said, look, you're gonna either give it to me, or they would, you know what I mean? Look what happened, right? If you all want this to end, you might as well just give it to me. So they forcefully, I mean, he forced them to give it to him, and he seems to be one that is controlling the planet now. And yeah, so if people want to see more confirmation of pyramid wars and nuclear bombs, there's a place in Pakistan called Mohenjo-daro. I think it's Henjo Daro, Daro. You will see people in the streets that are pulverized, still on stairs, skeletons just there. No vermin or animal would even touch the corpse, because they're completely full of radiation. And when you pull away the surface again, you see the sand, the soil has turned to glass, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So this is why nuclear weapons are nothing new. They are the ones that taught us nuclear weapons, right?
Yeah. What a trip.
Yeah.
Wow.
Truth is stranger than fiction.
Yeah. Seriously. Wow. And then so it's like, and you said that Marduk is affiliated or has symbolism with the owl, right? You said that too.
Yes, he also has the symbol of the calf, the bull.
Uh huh.
So when in the Old Testament, when Moses went to Mount Sinai to receive the tablets from God, which was really Enlil, and basically the scripture talks about arriving in a pillar of smoke and leaving in a pillar of fire. That's basically a spaceship, because the spaceship's coming down, a lot
Hmm.
of smoke, and then leaving in a pillar of fire. The rockets, the
Right.
from the exhaust from the spaceship or rocket, whichever it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when Moses went to Mount Sinai to receive the tablets, which was basically Enlil giving it to his man Moses, and he came down, they were worshiping the golden calf. This is why I said to you that Marduk is the odd one out, because even though he's an Enkiite, because he's Enki's son,
Yeah.
he's a complete psychopath, right? He just wants it all for himself, right? He doesn't care about his father, Enlil, no one. I am the man, I want it. That's his mentality, right?
Yeah.
So Marduk infiltrates basically the Enki side, Enlil side, sorry, which is the Jews, and he introduced, because he at the Talmudic Jews come out from him. So when Moses came down and saw them worshiping golden calf, it was a symbol to Marduk, right? So he was all been trying to infiltrate to stir things up from the background.
That's where they got that's where they got the term holy cow. You know what I mean? I remember back, when I was younger and you're able to go to clubs or bars and stuff. One of the places that I would go to, it was called the Holy Cow, and then they had a cow right in front of the building, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's
Yeah,
funny.
it's
Uh,
when you start to see the symbology, because basically it's through the symbology that we can track these entities. Excuse me. And we know that, as I said to you, that Enki was represented by the serpent in Genesis, but his son Ningashita, or more better known as Thoth, the Atlantean,
oh,
he is took on that serpent symbol. So he's
oh,
actually the plumed serpent. So you speak Spanish, right?
yeah, a little bit. So
Where
that's
you
where
from?
Quetzalcoatl,
Aha, you took
right?
yes.
Oh,
Quetzalcoatl, Kukulkan, and
yeah.
Viracocha. He was Viracocha for the Inca, right? So what it is now is that after like time went by, because Atlantis what people don't understand is that Atlantis was not just one place. Atlantis was a civilization, right? Which I would say most likely included Egypt, right? Because
Mhm.
the pyramids are a lot older than they tell us. And the evidence that we have for that is that when you look at the base, the base of that area, you see the strata in the soil that it is clear that that area was underwater when they had the flood. But there were several floods. We have the cataclysm that is most well known is about 11,000, 12,000, depends on which historian you go by, but in that range.
Jeez.
So as I was saying is that when they looked at the strata of the soil and the markings at the base of not only the pyramids but other structures in that area, it lines up to the great cataclysm that we had with the flood. So if
Mm.
you have those strata with the soil, the markings on the base of on the walls, it would suggest that they actually were in existence prior to it. So it's
Mm.
much older. Now,
Yeah.
mainstream scientists will not want to admit that, but there's quite strong evidence to suggest that the pyramids, man, it could be up to 36,000 years. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's the longest time frame that I've seen.
Yeah.
So what it is now is that you ever heard of a place called Gobekli Tepe?
Yes.
Right. They'd say that is up to 10,000 years, but what happened is that they only excavated 10%. And I've seen some information that suggests that that's probably up to 80,000 years, because as the timeline started to get older and older, they stopped allowing them to dig. And then we had the war in Syria.
And they don't want to admit this, huh? They do not. I remember I forgot what video or I forgot how I saw this, but something about the Sphinx, in Egypt with the nose, they
Yeah.
got broken off, but they were saying it's this time, but then if some guy was saying it was super way older than that because of whatever they did with the Sphinx. It's weird and interesting that they really want to keep those times completely like off. They want to have those off for us,
Well, yes, because it would cause us to question everything, right? And
Yeah.
the 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 the, the, the
And
worst
to
thing
not
they
believe in
want,
them. Yeah.
yeah, the least thing they want is a populace that questions stuff, you know?
Yeah. And to not
Yeah, man.
and to just take it, just to accept things as they are, just take my word for it, and that's it, and don't look back, yeah.
Absolutely. And this is why, like, I always say that in order to understand the present, you have to understand the past. And this is one of the reasons why I talk about the Sumerian tablets in such detail. And it's because I want to give people the understanding that their history is a lot older than what they say, because mainstream religion tells us that we are only 6,000 years old, because the Judaism takes us up to 6,000, but we have information that goes way, 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 way back. And 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 the thing is, until we have older records, we can't ignore this information. So everything that I am saying could be false if we find newer information. I mean, older, when I say, but the Sumerian tablets are the oldest records on Earth. They're the oldest writing system, called cuneiform. That
Mhm.
cuneiform was the writing system of the Babylonians, the Akkadians, the Chaldeans. So all the stuff that I'm talking about is an amalgamation of all all the information that they've left, right?
Yeah.
So this is why, like, what they've done now is that since they have stepped back more and more to almost be invisible, they rule this planet through their bloodlines, which are the royal families, prime ministers, presidents, etc. And this is why you see that, for example, in the United States, there's basically one bloodline, or not only one, but there is a bloodline that are very well connected to each other.
Yeah,
That
one main one for sure, right?
right, one main one for
Yeah.
sure, because George Bush is supposed to be some distant cousin of Obama. You know what I mean? And then you still got the Collins family, which is what JFK came out of. All these families they're like cousins, right? And they
Yeah.
only intermarry in each other. This is where, you know what I mean? That came from the Anunnaki because they used to marry their half sisters, right?
Yeah. To
So
like that whole royalty concept thing, Damn.
But this is why on the king's list, the Sumerian king's list, it says, and the kingship was lowered from heaven to earth, right? And the kingship is the system that they use, which they just taught us. And through their bloodlines, they control the planet, right?
Mm.
And this is why, like, they control the money, they control the religion, they control all history. You know what I mean? All roads lead to the Vatican. And the Vatican, what people don't understand, is the sort of like the connection point to everything. All roads lead to the Vatican. The Vatican has the most artifacts on Earth for our history. I think if you were to, because their corridors snake like that for all the artifacts and books and stuff. I think it's if you put it on a straight line, it would probably stretch to about 50 miles. You know,
Wow.
it's a lot of stuff that they have. Stuff
Wow.
that came out to the Library of Alexandria. You know what I mean? But they know that all the stuff I'm telling you, they know this and probably a lot more.
Yeah.
Because I watched an interview about 8 years ago. It was in Italian, but I read it was in English subtitles, and it was this guy who was a translator of ancient text, right?
Mm-hmm.
He said categorically that the information that he translated says that basically aliens created us and they
Mm.
came here and that they control everything, right? So the deep state, they own the deep state, you know,
Mm.
because there are 3 levels of 13 families that control this planet. So the lower levels would be like the politicians, like the high politicians and stuff. But then you have the middle 13 families, which would be like the royal family in England, the other royal families, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers. These are that middle. They're the middle tier. Then
Yeah.
above them are what we would call the real ruling elite. These are families that most people never heard of. So in that 13 set of families, you have 5 main families that do all the bidding. They're the Medici, the Orsini, the Breckspear, the Samigli, and I can't remember the next one. Aldobrandini.
I heard of
Um,
Orsini just
right.
a little
Pepe
bit.
Orsini. Pepe Orsini, he's the most powerful man on the planet. Jesuit,
Oh,
you know?
okay.
Yeah, so he's the way called the Grey Pope. So the Grey Pope is above the Black Pope because Pope Francis is the White Pope because you realize he always wears white. And then there's the
Yes.
Black Pope, which is above him. So they always try to keep the colors balanced. So when you look at Masonic floors, you always see they're black and white checkered.
Yeah.
So, right, this is a lot of allegory here that I'm showing you. So that's representation of the Black and the Grey Pope system that they have, you know. And then on top of them, the Black and White Pope is the Grey Pope, which is Pepe Orsini.
Okay.
And right, and above them, I am very leaning towards that the Anunnaki are on top of them, and then the Anunnaki worship a negative energy, right? Some people would attribute it to AI. I don't know, but what I would say is that it is very. There are things. There are a lot of things that are hidden, and it would make sense because artificial intelligence had to come from somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Clearly, we didn't invent it. We invented nothing. Everything that we have, has been given to
Passed
us
down.
and passed down and seeded through bit by bit by bit by bit. And where we are now on the planet is that they are trying to fulfill prophecy, because they basically wrote these scriptures, but they use something called Hegelian dialect, and the method of the revelation is having the truth and the lie at the same time. So what they will do is that you can't have a lie unless you have the truth, because a lie is impossible if there's no truth, right?
Yeah. You have to bend
So
something. You have to break something. You know.
correct. You have to bend something, break something, right? So they will tell you the truth, just not all of it, but they will tell you enough that they can use to bend it, because
Yeah.
they can't create anything, right?
Yeah. I would call it like a lie hamburger or like a lie sandwich. You know, where like out of the ingredients, so you have a couple good ingredients, but then they'll throw in like a fake lettuce, a lying lettuce, or a lying piece of cheese. And then once you get the lie in there, then it distorts. Then it's like a distorted piece after that or whatever.
Did you ever watch that movie Lucy, called Lucy?
God, I did. I did, but it was so long ago, you
Right.
know, and I only saw it once. That you know, I don't remember it so well. You know what I mean? But it was funny because just a couple weeks ago, I was like looking for stuff to watch, and I was like, oh, I was like, maybe I should watch Lucy again. I ended up not watching it, but yeah, but I remember liking that movie, and I remember thinking there was a lot of shit to it. You know what I mean? Like they're explaining stuff to us a lot through the movie. You know what I mean?
Well, yes, because there's a scene when someone I can't remember who the movie completely myself, but someone was talking to Lucy, and they told her that basically the people that control things, they can't create anything. If you give them a blank piece of paper, they can't draw anything. But if you
Yeah,
draw something on the paper, they can manipulate it. And this is what is happening on Earth now. They cannot create the reality that they want. So they use us to create that reality, because we are the sons of man. We have the spark of divinity in us. We are
that's what it is, huh?
we are co-creators of God. In fact, we are God. All of us. I am God, you are God, the plants are God, the trees are God, the animals are God, everything is God. The
It's the
sea, the
spark, huh?
fish.
It's the spark in us. That's why, because that we have the same spark as God, and that's why we're able, like how you said, huh? That's what it is. They
Exactly.
they don't have the spark, so that's why they're just like they don't have the creative, like like an inherent thing of God is to be able to be like like an extension of creation, right? And then but with them they don't have that, or it's lost or something like, and then so all they can do is distort, just kind of like twist it around, but they like like twist around something that's already there, but you can't make up anything on your own, right? Like that creative force is not there.
And the reason for that is that in order to create, you have to be in a state of love. Love is
Mm,
a positive energy. So this is why God is love. This is why Christ said that Christ only taught two things really, Love your God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. Love. That's it.
mm.
And these entities and these people that control the world, they live in fear. So when you live in fear, it's a negative energy. It does not allow you to create anything. So what you do is you have to trick, manipulate, usurp, bend, use cunning and guile to get someone to create for you what you want. So
Yeah,
what they do is that because they know that we are very powerful beings, what they do is that they put us in a state of fear through the media, excuse me, through television, through all these video games, etc.
yeah.
And it puts it, it they trick us into creating the world that they want, because they know that we have this great power inside of us.
Yeah.
Because
Whatever kind of like whatever the latest and the greatest thing is to put out. Then okay, that's the latest one now. So now suck on that one, and then it's just kind of it's always like a new thing. Like they would just and then just to try to keep us like kind of chasing our tail or kind of just keep us wandering around. And then
Paul Joseph Watson calls it the message. So because the message changes like ever so often. So the latest message
yes,
is
yeah,
fear this. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Fear this because we live in a guilt and fear based matrix, and this guilt and fear based matrix was set up by them as a means to control us, right? And basically, Thoth, who was Enki's son, who was also Hermes for the Greeks, Hermes Trismegistus, he was Buddha, he was the Melchizedek in the Bible, the king of Salem. That was Thoth.
Mm.
In the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, he says, I Thoth, the great builder of the pyramids in the land of Kham. Kham is Egypt, right? Because
Yes.
Kham means the land of the blackheads. So basically, because he created these pyramids, because there are loads and loads of pyramids on Earth, loads. There are sunken pyramids under the Japanese Sea, because of high civilization over there, because Atlantis was a civilization. It was not just one place. And the Atlanteans, they were the ones that basically taught us all these things. But from cataclysm to cataclysm, what's happened is that a lot of this ancient knowledge has been lost. And what Thoth did is that he put in artificial Christ consciousness. Artificial in the sense where he used the ley lines on the earth that have natural power and put these pyramids on top in order to boost the energy. So what he did is that he created a grid system that would artificially try to boost our consciousness. But what happened is that
And this was
the
in
other
Atlantis.
this was all over the earth. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You
But
have pyramids in India.
was it during the time of like the golden age of Atlantis? Was it like in the middle of all that stuff, right?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Oh,
So there were high civilizations on Earth many years ago, many years ago. So it looks like if for every time there's a different age, it seems that a cataclysm has triggered from the golden age to the silver age to the bronze age. So the bronze age is what basically ushered in when we were really stupid because we knew nothing of these things. The silver age still had some remnants of it, but that again another cataclysm came, and because one of the biggest cataclysms that they had was it looked like it was a solar ejection that hit Earth and basically destroyed the entire Earth, and only some people were saved. And then all the technology and knowledge was gradually lost from one cataclysm to the next.
so you're saying that Thoth kind of did like a artificial, like what was this again? Like
He put in an artificial Christ consciousness grid, right? That because he knew this this comes out of the book called The Tree of Life by The Secret of the Tree of Life, I think by John Vallon Melchizedek. He channeled Thoth, and Thoth told him all of these things. And he also disclosed in that book that he was Buddha as well. So what it was is that on the planet has ley lines, which are zones of extreme amounts of energy. So by putting the pyramids on these ley lines, it means that you can tap into this energy and help raise the consciousness of man, because it takes 100,000 years for a civilization to go from not knowing much to be ascended beings. And after the last cataclysm, which, like I say, goes up to like 12,500 years ago, some people say 10. So it's between that time span. He knew of this time coming that we're in right now. All of these things, basically, he knew because it's just a cycle. right? We have cycles. The Hindus call it the Kali Yuga that we're in now, and this is basically the apocalypse, where the revelation, lifting of the veil.
Yeah.
So because he knew that we could never reach a high level of consciousness in 10,000 years, he installed this artificial grid to, when they say artificial, means that he made it to boost our consciousness, right? Because we normally go like that, but with these grids that he put in, it would do like a hockey stick.
Uh-huh.
But what happened is that the enemy, he infiltrated that grid and made it very dense and hard.
Who was the, if I could ask, who was the enemy of Thoth, or of this grid thing, of this grid?
I use the word the enemy, because to be able to, this is the negative energy that is counter against the positive energy of God, right? And that is the energy that I think the Anunnaki worship, right?
It's like some version. So it's like some version of Satan, even like some version of an adversary, even though we don't know.
Yes,
but like some
yes.
version of it. Dude, this is wild, man. I have to say, because I've talked about it before when I had Kirsten. She's a shaman, and I was opening up to her about how I felt about these grids, and then some kind of like hijacking of the grids, because I feel like a very deep personal thing with this. And then and I feel a lot of the reason why I'm here is to like help amend a lot of these things, or a lot of what this stuff had an effect on, because how you said earlier, a lot of this stuff with like Enki and Enlil, we're still seeing now, like these archetypes or these figures, whatever you want to call it. It's like we're dealing with like it's like them versus them, like these kind of people versus these kind of people. And then like now it's very evident about like the polarization of this. And so this is like the backlash we're dealing with, all the stuff that comes after that. This is so crazy that you're talking about the grids. It's very fascinating. So it's like I feel like you're helping me get like some type of like closure, I guess. You know what I mean? Because I don't know. I didn't know about this information like that. Like I just knew it inside. Like I just knew a little bit of just inside of me that I felt and resonated with. But you're explaining like a lot of details. So that's like, oh, like this makes a lot of sense. Thank you, man, for
Yeah,
this
my
is
pleasure, man.
a lot of deep
Because
shit.
even the enemy, he installed the obelisk on ley lines. So every obelisk on Earth is built on a ley line, and that is to try to counter the positive pyramid structures that we have on Earth. Every pyramid is built on a ley line. Churches are built on ley lines as well, right?
Yeah,
There's
dude,
a lot of stuff that people
man.
can't wrap their head around, because this is why, like, you can have very powerful experiences in a church, and the reason is because they're on ley lines, and they're harnessing that energy, but they invert because the energy is just energy, but you can actually reverse it to make it positive or negative.
Yeah,
So
harnessed for whichever way, right? Or
yeah, because you have magic, which can be black magic or white magic, meaning
yeah,
positive magic,
yeah, yeah, and like how a battery has a positive and negative charge
negative,
in a
right?
sense, or whatever. Dude, wow, man. I want to have you on, man, because I wanted to freaking talk about like fitness and all that stuff like at another, but I don't know, I don't know, we might have to kind of continue off with maybe some of this. I don't know, I guess we'll kind of figure it out and kind of feel it out, but yeah, I'm gonna have to get you on. Yeah, I would really love to explore more of this, because like I said, this is like something that I feel very deeply about, God, like it really pulls my strings like on the inside, because I know I have a lot of like karma, like if you want to call it karma, tied to this. And so yeah, it's super fascinating, super cool, dude. I guess we'll kind of kind of end it for now, but if you can let the people know like where they could find you, or like where to, you know, reach your socials and all that stuff, and then yeah, we'll have to keep coming in here if you don't mind, because it's you have a lot to share, and it's very fascinating, you know. So yeah,
Yeah, sure, no problem. And
yeah,
I tell you something, right? Most people on Earth have a lot of like trauma and deep rooted fears from because it appears that we all were at the time of Atlantis when Atlantis fell, because it fell through a cataclysm. So
yeah,
that fear through epigenetics is has been transferred to all of us because we reincarnate, right? Reincarnation is real because if you ever read the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Tibetan Book of the Dead tells you literally how to reincarnate, right?
mm,
Nuts. So I would say that I am not surprised by what you said just now because what it is that you are more in tuned with that, but you don't know where. And it could be, I'm not saying it is, but it could be that you were here during our high time in Atlantis. And when it fell and it was flooded, that trauma and fear probably still is in your subconscious. And you
yeah.
just have this feeling where you know you
I
have to
feel
do what you're going.
like for me, what I like what I felt, or what I seem to know or feel inside of me is something with the grids. Like I say got jacked, but it just means got distorted or maybe reversed or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
And then so I'm sensitive with like my energy, like say even like meridians and chakras, and so like I'm in tune with like the lines of like myself, and then so I know here that I'm in a distortion. And then I'm like, well, how am I in this distortion? So it's a part of it is me and inside of me, and then a part of it's like the earth. But either way, it's all me and my experience. And so I just that's how I see it. So like I see it as like here, kind of like how people do yoga, how you it's like a how a flower petal or a lotus petal, and in yoga and it unwinds and it expands like a beautiful like lotus flower, for example, right? I feel like whatever I'm doing here is like because of my distortion or distortions that I'm doing my best, kind of like in a sense, to use like yoga or that concept of yoga, which is like merging with like uh, divinity or union with that, to make myself my own flower, like, you know, to expand myself in that right way. And it kind of takes away the distortion. Like I'm in my process, and I guess I probably won't finish until I die per se, but that's like what I'm dealing with, like that I feel inside of me. You know what I mean? So that's like a reason why I have uh like the what do you call it? You know, like I have a little bit of like fire in me to like improve, because I always know like there's so much to improve that I have to work on. So like a lot of it's because of that shit that I feel, that distortion that I feel, that I know of something happened in Atlantis one of them times where like however it happened, I just say that we fucked up because I'd like to be accountable, you know what I mean, to keep my sovereignty, you know, so I say we fucked up. But however it happened, you know, like it basically like it either reversed it or it like just it just kind of fucked it up in a way. And then so yeah, wow, dude, yeah, freaking good shit, dude. Let the people know where they could find you, like your socials and all that good stuff.
Yes, well, the reason why you had said that we could talk about fitness is because I'm actually a online fitness trainer, and I help people burn fat. I help spiritually inclined people burn fat, and build muscle.
Hell yeah.
And I in that statement, I tend to work with people that have a bit of understanding that things in the world are not the way they're supposed to be, and I help people to, you know, overcome fears and traumas, hack their mind, and um, get a better mindset. Because in order to actually get in shape, you actually have to tackle the mind, because the body only achieves what the mind believes, and you can never ever get in shape if you don't believe that you can do it.
Yeah.
So I spend a lot of time working on mindset, nutrition, and obviously exercise as well. And this is why my
That's sick.
students get this is why my students get great results, because I help them to find that inner child inside them and connect with themselves, because a lot of the times we actually get in the way and stop us from achieving stuff through self-sabotage. And that may be come in the form of not eating what you know you're supposed to eat, not going and exercising when you know you should. All of these are forms of self-sabotage, talking
Yeah.
to yourself in a very negative way. Again, another form of self-sabotage.
That's
So
nice that it's a very holistic approach. I really like that. You know what I mean?
yes.
That's some real shit. That's really cool. And then how you said self-sabotage, that's pretty much the word of the day that I've been dealing with the last week, or especially since this last weekend. So close to a week, because I've been dealing with this myself. And then so I'm like, man, like it's funny because I think that I make progress in my life with these issues of self-sabotage, right? Because I know I have them like on subconscious levels for sure. And then I think I've been doing good like the last, and then all of a sudden like things happen over in my world that like freaking make me hit these like really low points. And I'm like, oh, I'm still doing this self-sabotage thing. So it's a very real, it's a very real thing to tackle. You know what I mean? Because the number one person like that can hold ourselves back is our own self. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's pretty cool that you have these like holistic approaches.
Yes, and the thing is that all of us, including myself, do have our moments where we self-sabotage. But what I would say is that as you become more and more of a spiritual person, to understand the fabric of the world, understand the things that I explained today, as you gradually understand them more, your low points last for shorter periods of time, because you realize, I'm doing that thing again. Okay, so I better stop. So you always have moments of down, because growth and progress is not linear, never linear. It's multidimensional, multifaceted, and it is go. You have ups, then you have some downs. You go up again higher, you come down again. You're thinking, oh my gosh, but I shouldn't be coming down. But no, you always have to have ups and downs. Even look at any chart of a stock market, cryptocurrency. It never goes up one to all linearly and comes down linearly. It goes
Yeah.
in waves, right?
Yeah, you're right. I feel better about that. You kind of have to take, even if you're the best baseball player or whatever, you can't always hit a home run. You're not always going to hit a
No,
home run every time that you're at bat. That's impossible. That doesn't make, yeah, that makes sense. And then plus, how else do we learn? Because some people like me that have like a stubborn nature in a way, sometimes we got to get our asses kicked or our foot up our ass and to like really, be able to digest, like I mean, we have to learn by our mistakes, or at least that's what that's like what helps me out a lot is learning about my fuck ups. And so, yeah,
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely, and I agree. And this is why I say to people that are searching for the light and on the path, just keep going, don't give up. Keep carrying your cross, because Christ said, "Pick up your own cross and follow me." Pick up your cross. So you have to walk this path, because He said the path is narrow and few find it. You
yeah,
know.
yeah.
So
I guess I think about when you say that, I think about there was this I learned it from or had read about it and learned it from Stuart Swerdlow, this gentleman who was in the Montauk Project. There was this thing where he called it your T-bar, and so it's like right here. It was like a way to like balance your brain, like your brain hemispheres. So I think about that too. Like when you can balance your own brain hemispheres, then that's when you're carrying like your own cross in a sense. You know what I mean? Like when you have that full balance, that wholeness.
yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I'm looking forward to talking to you again, because there's a ton of stuff that I've not even gotten into, because I've not gotten to
Beautiful.
talk about Christ and what that means and what is
Hell yeah.
Christ, all that
Hell
kind
yeah,
of
dude. Yeah,
stuff.
no, we're gonna have you on real soon. Yeah, because there's so much to talk about. Like I'm not even sure. Well, I guess we'll figure it out whether it'll be fitness related or not, because there's just a lot of shit. But that's a good thing. It's better than the opposite. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Well,
So yeah.
I did 3 podcasts with Jihan, and we touched on slightly different things all the time, just expanding. So we could have a bit of a series, because
Hell yeah.
there's a lot of stuff I've not even been able to touch on, because the thing is that it's so much, right? Honestly, that I would probably need about 7 8 hours to probably empty my whole vessel.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Well, we got time. So hell yeah,
Yeah,
dude.
man.
Yeah, good shit. Real quick, let the folks know where they could find your find your pages and stuff like that. So if they want to get a hold of you, for whatever kind of services, you help, for your services that you help with, or just to even follow you and kind of see what you're up to.
Sure.
Let them know your
So
thing. Yeah.
So you can mostly find me on Instagram, IG, at Adriano_246. And I'm also on Facebook as well. My name, Todd Cave, TODDCAVE. And yeah, reach out to me if you have any questions or any information I spoke about tonight. And if you're also interested in burning fat and building muscle and getting into the best shape of your life and living your best life, because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, if you don't start with the body, most likely you're not going to be able to improve your mindset, because the two
Yeah.
go hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
My take
Truly.
is that you go through the body to strengthen the mind, because in doing that, what happens is that you create new habits, and in creating new habits, it means you create new neurons in the brain. And we know that neurons that fire together wire together. What that means is that because you have the spark of divinity inside of you, you create your own reality.
Mm.
And if this is something that resonates with you and you want to increase your level of consciousness, get into shape, learn some things that are not of this world, hit me up at Adriano_246 or Todd Cave on Facebook. Looking forward to chatting to
Hell yeah.
you and see if it can help you.
Hell yeah. And yes. And I'll have that in the notes for everyone too. But man, I totally agree with that too, with the whole body thing. Like I'm a big advocate and I really do my best for that because I know that if I want to have magical components in my life that like if I can't do it with my body, if I can't make it work, or how people use the word manifest, if I can't manifest that in my body, if I can't make it happen like that, then it's like good luck having other kind of powers, you know what I mean? Because it's like they're very tied, they're very hand in hand, all that stuff. And so good shit, dude. Yeah, right on. I really appreciate you, and we'll have you on pretty soon, so we can kind of continue
Sure,
this talk.
sure,
Thank
man.
you,
We
man.
can we
Yeah.
can we can have a bit of a series because I've had to leave out a lot of stuff because
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
sure. No,
I
I'm
could
sure
go
because
on
you
tangents
have
and
so
tangents
much.
and
Yeah,
tangents.
you have so much shit that it's like, yeah, and so so we'll definitely be doing something like that, so we could freaking be able to hash all this out, and you know what I mean. And I'm sure the people will definitely like to hear it for sure. So
Yeah,
right
man, my
on.
pleasure, man.
Yeah.
So thanks for having me,
Well,
brother.
yeah, for sure, for sure. I'll talk to you after this. When I sign out, just hang on for a second so I can say bye, and then yeah,
Sure.
but yeah, all right, folks. Well, that's another episode of Uncanny Mystic Minds, and we will catch you guys on the next episode. Peace.